The Harlow family bought the Redstone property in March, when the Utah high desert still held frost in the mornings and the sky above the Uinta Basin was the particular shade of blue that makes people believe in the possibility of starting over. Dale Harlow had paid less than the land was worth. He knew this. The realtor had been too eager, too relieved when Dale signed the papers, too quick to shake his hand and leave. But Dale had wanted land and cattle and the specific silence of a place where no neighbor could see your front door, and the Redstone Basin had all of those things. The price seemed a reasonable trade for the 20 miles of dirt road and the strange, almost apologetic way the seller had wished him luck. They moved in on a Saturday. Dale, his wife Carol, their son Marcus, who was 15 and already had the lean, watchful quality of a boy who decided the world wasn't quite what adults claimed. 3 dogs, 2 horses, and 40 head of Hereford cattle they trucked up from their previous place in Colorado. The basin was quiet in a way that Colorado hadn't been. Dale had lived rural his whole life, quiet but different, a quality of attention in the silence, as if the land were listening. He didn't mention this to Carol. She was happy, the happiest he'd seen her in years, standing on the porch in the March cold with her coffee, looking out at the basin and the red rock formations to the north that gave the property its name. He didn't mention it to Marcus either. The boy had enough reasons to be unhappy about the move. The first cow died in April. Dale found it at the north end of the property, near the fence line that bordered the reservation land. The carcass was bloodless, not drained, not wounded in any visible way, simply absent of blood as if it had never contained any. The hide around the face had been removed with a precision that suggested instruments, surgical instruments, the kind of clean incisions that didn't result from predators or weather or any natural cause Dale could name. The eye sockets were empty, not torn, excised. Whatever had removed the eyes had done so carefully, leaving the surrounding tissue undamaged. Dale stood in the frost-hardened grass and looked at what remained of a $500 animal and tried to identify a framework that explained it. He couldn't. He called the county sheriff, a man named Briggs who drove out that afternoon in a truck that had seen better decades. Briggs walked around the carcass twice, hands in his jacket pockets, face carefully neutral. "Mountain lion," Briggs said finally. "Mountain lion doesn't do that," Dale said. "That's surgical. Scavengers after, maybe. Clean things up strange sometimes." Dale looked at Briggs. Briggs stared at nothing. "You know something about this property," Dale said. Briggs was quiet for a moment. "I know there's been trouble here before. Previous owners had similar losses, chalked it up to predators. But they left." "They left," Briggs agreed. He looked like he wanted to say more, then decided against it. He called Dr. Elena Marsh, the large animal veterinarian in Vernal, who drove the 40 minutes and arrived at dusk. She was thorough, professional, and increasingly quiet as she examined the carcass. When she finished, she packed her kit without meeting Dale's eyes. "I can't tell you what did this," she said. "The cuts are too clean for anything biological. The complete absence of blood loss at the wound sites means the blood was removed after death or..." She stopped. "I don't know. I've never seen anything like it." She left before dark, driving quickly. Briggs had already gone. The Ute man came on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after the first cow died. He was perhaps 70, dressed in the practical clothing of someone who worked outdoors, and he stood at the end of Dale's driveway without approaching the house. Dale drove out to meet him. "I heard someone bought the Redstone," the man said. His name was Thomas Runningwater, he said, and he was a member of the Ute tribe whose reservation land bordered the property to the north. "That's right," Dale said. Thomas Runningwater looked at the house, at the basin, at the red rock formations to the north. "My grandfather's grandfather's grandfather warned people away from this place, said something bad lived here, something ancient, from before we came to this valley." "What kind of something?" Thomas Running Water chose his words carefully. Among my people, there are those who practice a dark medicine, who learn to change their shape, to wear other faces. We call them by a name that means he who walks on all fours. Your culture might call them shapeshifters. He paused. We believe one of these has claimed this basin as its territory, has been here longer than our stories. You believe that? Dale said, and immediately regretted the skepticism in his voice. Thomas Running Water didn't take offense. My grandfather's grandfather warned people away. Nobody listened. Nobody ever listens. He looked at Dale with the patience of someone who expected to be dismissed. I'm telling you because your family is here and it's the right thing to do, not because I expect you to believe me. He left without waiting for a response. That night Dale told Carol about the conversation, framed as local folklore, the kind of thing rural communities accumulated around properties with troubled histories. Carol said, "That's fascinating," and went back to her book. Dale sat on the porch until midnight, watching the darkness beyond the fence line. Nothing watched back, or nothing he could see. The second cow died in May, and the third the same week. Dale found them both near the north fence. Same surgical excision of the facial tissue, same absence of blood, same emptied eye sockets. The grass around each carcass was undisturbed, as if whatever had done this had descended from above or materialized beside the animals without approaching on the ground. The third time, Dale found tracks. Not in the grass, in a section of bare earth near the fence post. Large prints mismatched. One foot was enormous, broad-toed, suggesting something that walked upright but was heavier than a man. The other print was smaller, different in shape, like a different creature entirely. Dale photographed the tracks, drove into Vernal, and showed them to Briggs. Briggs looked at the photographs for a long time. "I'll come out tomorrow," he said. He came out the next morning and walked the fence line with Dale, and it was in the middle of that walk that they found the dog. One of Dale's 3 dogs. The border collie, the one Marcus had raised from a puppy and brought with them from Colorado. It was in the grass 20 yards inside the fence line, and it had been positioned, not lying as if it had died, but arranged, legs straight, head up, eyes open, facing the house, as if watching. The eyes were wrong, the same brass-colored wrongness that meant the thing inside them was no longer the dog. Briggs crouched beside it, and the dog turned its head and looked at him. "It's alive," Briggs said, reaching toward it. "Don't," Dale said. Briggs's hand was 6 inches from the dog's head when it spoke. Not barked, not whined. Spoke, in a voice that approximated a human voice the way a photograph approximates a face. Close enough to recognize, wrong in ways that bypassed the mind and went straight to the stomach. It said Briggs's name. Briggs jerked back and made a sound Dale had never heard a grown man make. The dog, the thing inside the dog, watched him with those wrong eyes and said his name again, and then a third time, each repetition slightly more accurate, as if it were practicing, as if Briggs were a word it was learning to pronounce. Between the second and third repetition, it tilted its head and looked at Dale, studied him, the way you'd study something you intended to understand completely, given sufficient time. Then it looked back at Briggs and said his name a 4th time, and this time it was perfect. "We need to leave," Dale said. They walked back to the truck quickly. Neither of them ran, both of them wanting to. When Dale looked back from the truck door, the dog was standing now, watching them go, its head tilted at an angle that no dog's neck should accommodate. Briggs drove away without speaking. He called Dale that evening. "I'm coming back out tomorrow," he said, "going to bring my deputy." He didn't come back. Dale called the sheriff's office 3 days later. The woman who answered said Sheriff Briggs hadn't been into the office, said his truck had been found on County Road 14, keys in the ignition, driver's door open. They were still looking. In June, Something began watching the house at night. Dale knew it by the way the remaining 2 dogs behaved, pressed against the interior walls, refusing to go outside after dark, trembling with a continuous, silent terror. He knew it by the way Marcus had started sleeping with his light on and wouldn't say why. In the mornings, Dale would find the boy standing at his bedroom window, staring at the basin with an expression that wasn't quite his, something too still, too focused, like a person listening to a frequency just below audible range. When Dale asked what he was looking at, Marcus would blink and say nothing, just turn away and start his morning routine as if the question hadn't been asked. He knew it by the cold that settled around the house on certain nights, a cold that had nothing to do with the desert temperature. He began seeing shapes in the tree line, not consistently, sometimes nothing, sometimes a silhouette that was too tall, proportioned incorrectly, that moved when he moved his flashlight beam but was never quite caught by it. Carol noticed it too, though she didn't say so. He could tell by the way she'd started going very quiet in the evenings, standing at the kitchen window looking out at the basin with a stillness that wasn't peace. Dr. Marsh came back in late June, called by Dale because 2 more cattle had died and he needed documentation for the insurance. She examined the carcasses with the efficiency of someone doing a job she'd already decided not to think about too hard. When she finished, she accepted Dale's offer of coffee and sat at the kitchen table. "I looked into the history of this property," she said. Dale waited. "There were 3 families before you, going back to the 50s. All of them reported the same things: livestock deaths, lights in the sky, animals behaving strangely. All of them left within 2 years." She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. "The family in the 80s, their oldest son disappeared. They found his truck near the north fence. Keys in the ignition, driver's door open." She paused. "Sound familiar?" "Briggs," Dale said. "Something up here takes people," Marsh said flatly. "Takes them or changes them into something it can use. I don't know which is worse." She stood, picked up her kit. "I won't be coming back, Mr. Harlow. I'm sorry, but I won't be coming back." She left. Dale watched her taillights disappear down the dirt road, and then he stood in the kitchen until Carol came in and asked what was wrong. He told her everything. Thomas Runningwater's warning, the tracks with mismatched prints, the dog that had spoken Briggs's name, what Marsh had said. Carol listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a while. "Where would we go?" she asked. "Anywhere," Dale said. "Doesn't matter." "You think leaving would fix it?" "I think staying will kill us." Carol nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "Okay, we leave." They were packed and loaded by morning. Marcus took it better than Dale expected, loading his things in the dark without complaint, with the focused efficiency of a boy who'd already done his own calculations and reached his own conclusions. They were pulling out of the driveway when Dale saw it. Standing at the north fence line, at the edge of where the property met the reservation land, illuminated by the first gray light of dawn. It was tall, too tall, and it stood the way things stand when they're not sure standing is the right posture. Its proportions shifted as Dale watched, as if it was cycling through shapes, trying them on. He could see it had been watching the house, had perhaps been watching all night. It raised one hand. The gesture was too human, precisely calibrated, the greeting of something that had studied greeting. Dale drove. He didn't stop. He drove the 20 miles of dirt road to the highway without looking in the rearview mirror, and when they reached pavement he drove south, away from the basin, away from the red rock formations and the north fence and the property he'd paid less than it was worth. Marcus sat in the back seat and didn't speak. Carol sat in the passenger seat with her hands folded in her lap, looking at the road ahead. They found a house in Colorado, in a town large enough that Dale felt safer. They enrolled Marcus in school. They bought a small dog to replace the ones they'd left. They'd left all 3 in the end, too afraid of what might be inside them. Carol found work at a local clinic. Dale found a job at a feed store. Normal life. The architecture of normalcy built deliberately, consciously, the way you'd build something to withstand a storm. In September, for months after they'd left Utah, Dale was sitting on the back porch of the Colorado house when he heard Marcus inside, talking. He went in to see who Marcus was on the phone with. Marcus wasn't on the phone. He was standing at the kitchen window, looking out at the backyard, speaking quietly to himself. Dale caught only the end of it before Marcus noticed him and stopped. What Marcus said, in a voice that was almost but not quite his own, was, "Still practicing." Dale stood in the kitchen doorway for a long moment. Marcus turned and looked at him, and for just a second, one fraction of a second that Dale would spend the rest of his life trying to rationalize away, his son's eyes were the wrong color. Then Marcus said in his normal voice, "Hey, Dad, what's for dinner?" Dale went back outside and sat on the porch and looked at the ordinary Colorado sky and understood that Thomas Running Water had been right. Had been right in the way that people were right when they'd been watching something for generations and had stopped expecting to be believed. It had learned them thoroughly enough, had studied them for months through the house windows, through the cattle, through the dog, had learned their voices and their movements and the specific frequencies of how they existed in the world. It hadn't needed to follow them. It was already there.
If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like, comment, or share this video with your friends. Subscribe to our channel to hear more stories like this one.